And we're live. Okay. So welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us and taking the time to attend our open house for the Community Improvement Plan Expansion Project. The Township of Cavan Monaghan is doing this project in conjunction with the Ontario Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs. And what we're doing is we're expanding our existing Millbrook Community Improvement Plan to enable eligible businesses throughout the township to access financial incentives, some that are existing, and we're also looking at adding new ones. We have hired DM Wills and Associates to lead the project. So Diana and Emma are going to take you through the next hour for the presentation. They're going to give you an overview of the project and get some input on potential projects or programs to add to the existing framework. So I just ask if you guys be a little bit patient with us. This is new for us to do it as a virtual meeting. So not the same as doing it in person, but we'll still pretty good. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to Diana and Emma.
Thank you, Bridget. So I'm just going to share my screen so we can start the presentation. Can everyone see that? Got some nods, that's good. Okay, so as Bridget introduced, this is a public open house for the Community Improvement Plan expansion for the Township of Cavan Monaghan. I am Diana Kay. I am the Manager of Planning Services with DM Wills and the project manager on this project, working closely with the Township to undertake the requirements with respect to the CIP. It's the Community Improvement Plan. I'm going to abbreviate it, to CIP, so I don't have to say the whole words the whole time. It can be quite a mouthful. So when I say CIP, I mean Community Improvement Plan. So just some housekeeping items with respect to undertaking a virtual meeting. If you would like to speak, we would ask that you use the raise hand function. We are going to keep you on mute until you are called upon from using the raise hand function in order to speak, and Bridget will unmute your microphone. And there's also the chat box available to you in the corner. So if you have any questions or comments that you want to make sure get answered or that you don't want to forget, absolutely feel free to use the chat. That will be monitored so we can get to your questions through that opportunity as well. So just to provide you with an agenda of what you can expect through this presentation, we are going to go through an overview of what a CIP is. We're also going to tell you what it isn't, so that way you can differentiate between what this program could do for the community. The purpose of the project, what the existing conditions look like within the township, and what we are proposing for new potential programs, including what could be expanded in terms of the current programs. We're going to do a critical thinking exercise. It's really important to get feedback from the community. So we're hoping that you can participate by answering a series of questions. We're going to mark everything up on a map so we can understand what areas the township could improve or is already working really well, or any additional ideas or thoughts that you may have with respect to a CIP in the township itself. Then we'll go over what the next steps are after this meeting, and then the floor will be open for questions. The intent is to provide to garner a lot of feedback and for you to provide a lot of feedback. So the presentation is 19 slides, but I promise we'll go through it quickly so that way we can get to the important information, which is to have that dialogue. At this point, Bridget, I'm going to ask if you could put up the poll. The poll is a series of questions just so we can gauge our audience. So we know who's here, if you have a business in the township, or if you don't, and what kind of services you would like to see. So if you could quickly fill out the poll and submit, then we can document that information so we know who you are that is kind enough to attend our open house this evening. I'm going to close mine because we all know who I am. I'm gonna leave it with you, Bridget, to let me know if we're close to completion. And I can't see the results, but if you can see the results, Bridget, let me know. Oh, you're on mute if you're talking.
Sorry, we just have 1 of 9 that's completed the poll. Some may not be completing it just because they're staff members or council.
For sure. We'll leave it open maybe just for another.
If I move this over, can you see it? Or does it disappear for you?
I do not see it.
Is that better?
Let's see.
Okay, we have 2. Let me see. Okay. Okay, so. Okay.
All right. I think we're
All right.
good.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thanks, Bridget, and thanks everyone for participating in that. Just to give us some background on who's participating.
Don't you share the results?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so we got 50% business owner and 50% not a business owner.
1 and 1.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, 1 0 to 5 years and 1 over 15 years. So just to gauge who's in the community. Is there the next set of
How many people? So there's, both have 0 to 5 people employed.
Mhm.
And 1 business is in Millbrook, the other is in the rural area, and their client base is County of Peterborough. And I think that's it. So that's
Excellent.
great. Okay.
Yeah, perfect.
Thanks
everyone.
everybody.
Okay, so getting to the meat and bones of it all. So what is a community improvement plan? So this is a tool that's established under the Planning Act. And what it does is it gives a mechanism to municipalities that will offer incentives to encourage community improvement goals. So there are programs that will meet the needs of local businesses that can participate in a CIP. They typically provide funding through grants, loans, or tax relief. It really depends on the type of program that the community is applying for. And it also depends on the means in which you can participate in that incentive program. So each program that we'll be discussing later, there is opportunities typically through a grant. It really is something that is designed based on how the person who's, or the business that's applying for that grant, that program, how they can help pay back that money or receive the money and then pay back that money. So in terms of financial incentives, what the funding can be used for, it can be used for environmental site assessments or remediation. So if you have a business on a site that might be contaminated and you need some assistance in order to clean up the site or determine how dirty it is, there's opportunities there. The financial incentives also speak to development and redevelopment or construction of buildings or structures on land. It also offers opportunities for rehabilitation. So if you need to rehab your property in order to support your existing business or an extension to your business, So it's really incentives that help you run your business and get it started. It's not necessarily, and it's not for funding that will, help employees do their work or get into the nitty gritty. It's really to help you establish the business, whether it's existing or whether it's a proposed business. So it's promoting for the promotion for the private sector to invest in their properties and revitalize their properties in order to, put that back into the community. So what a community improvement plan isn't, it can't change land uses. It also can't regulate or offer community goods or services. So, if there was some feedback with respect to a pool, a community improvement plan cannot allow the municipality to use funds to do the construction of a community pool. It doesn't regulate growth and development, so it doesn't have that tendency to reach out with respect to policies that relate to growth and development. It also doesn't look at implementing development policy. So when you look at growth in a community, when you bring in economic opportunity, usually the byproduct will be that you're going to experience growth, but the CIP doesn't directly relate to growth in terms of population increase. It doesn't look at planning for municipal infrastructure, so you can't use it to plan, the road system or sewer and water system, and it's not used to construct municipal infrastructure. So the purpose of this project is to determine the options for expanding the CIP. So currently there is a CIP, but it only applies to the Millbrook downtown core. So in order to ensure that the township is offering the same opportunities for all businesses within the township and for those different business sectors, we are looking at expanding the program township-wide. So just to give you an overview of the project process, in green, that is the first tier, I guess I can call it, of where we are in the process. So our team has undergone some intensive background review and discussions with the township with respect to that background to ensure that we have the most current information. And we established a technical advisory committee. So that's made up of members who are experienced in the field of business and CIPs and understand the process. So it's a committee which we share ideas and run our recommendations by to get that technical expertise back. And then that was all formulated into a background report. So the background report is looking at the existing conditions. It's going to look at how the current CIP is being used and if it's being used well, if there's a lot of uptake, and what kind of applications the township is seeing being applied for. The background report will be available to the public. We are currently finalizing the information in that report, so you can see that very soon on the, I believe it's going to be posted on the township's website, Bridget, so that way it's access for everyone. So you can see the information that we've obtained and what the existing conditions look like with respect to a CIP in the township. The next tier, and where the big star is, we are here. This is exactly where we are in the process. So we're really initiating that community engagement, and the opportunities that we're offering are surveys. So there are surveys that whether you're a business owner or not a business owner, they're tailored to each side. So that way we can obtain as much information as possible from the community with respect to services within the township, lack of services within the township, if so, why, what your thoughts and feelings are with respect to obtaining amenities and services in the township. So we are really encouraging everyone to fill those out because it's really important information for us. And of course, tonight's community open house, garnering that feedback from the public. I say this every time, when we prepare plans like this, it's not for us, it's for the community. We're just the people who know how to do it, but we're relying on the feedback from the public so we can give you a product that relates to your community and that you can use at the end of the day. So after this public open house and after we received input from all the surveys, we're going to take that feedback. We're going to analyze it against the existing conditions from our background report, and we're going to look at it against the proposed I guess, the current expansion and the proposed programs that we're going to recommend through our CIP directions report. And then from there, we're going to commence drafting the CIP. So right now we're still in the public engagement process. So we're still obtaining information in order to move ahead with some good recommendations for the community with respect to the expansion of the CIP programs. So this map here is the existing Millbrook CIP area, everything in red. So it doesn't capture very much. It's really just the core Main Street, King Street in Millbrook. So all those existing businesses right now can benefit from a CIP. However, but the balance of the township cannot. So we're looking at expanding this opportunity, and it doesn't mean that this line is going to get bigger. The CIP that you're seeing here, or the area that you're seeing here, will still apply. We're just looking at other areas and where we should be designating other CIP areas. So it'll be in addition to the Millbrook CIP area. This is a lot of information, and I promise I'm not going to read it all to you, but I just wanted you to see the existing incentive programs that are available through the current CIP. And again, these are specific to Millbrook. So some of these are very focused on urban areas and pedestrian access, which is not necessarily appropriate when you're outside of the urban area. So some of these incentive programs, I'm only going to speak to the ones that we think are appropriate to expand to the balance of the township. The first one would be the facade and signage grant. Everyone can benefit from improved facades and signage to promote and advertise their businesses. The building and site improvement grant, as well as the design study grant. So these grants encourage, well, the first one will encourage improvements to your properties, while the commercial conversion and expansion grant, that will assist with small scale conversions of existing commercial or spaces that are underutilized or vacant. Right now, we understand that there's quite a bit of vacant land that is designated already for employment uses. So this could be a good grant that could be expanded to the balance of the township to start getting those sites developed. The next one would be on this page, it would be the planning application and building permit fee rebate grant program. Usually when you're starting a development on a property, or if there's an existing development, you're probably going to need some building permits. In some cases, you might need planning approvals. So this is an opportunity to offset those costs, because the cost of development can be very high. So it's an opportunity to help people get through the permitting process and the approvals process where required. The redevelopment and adaptive reuse grant, this is stimulated through tax relief. So if people want to encourage reuse or rebuilding or redevelopment of their existing building, this is an opportunity for them to find some tax relief in order to initiate those changes. The Brownfield Financial Tax Incentive Grant, this is limited in the township. It's really for those sites that are on formal industrial lands that might need to be cleaned up. So this would hit a specific industrial use, industrial sector. So it should be open to the balance of the township. However, there might not be a lot of uptake just because it is catered to those locations that might have some dirty soil. So just to go over some of the feedback we received today, over the last few weeks that I'll be presenting to you today. We hear that the public is very interested in maintaining the community character. It's number 3 there, but man, it's important to people that the feeling of the township, the character of the township is maintained. People want to see more rural and green spaces and sustainable growth. When you talk sustainability, I think people are looking at efficiencies and in energy. It also could be the way that we develop and the way that we move people around the township. So I've added some additional items with respect to what our project team is observing. And we did a driving tour around the township just to document some existing conditions when, you know, nothing too invasive. It was really just to see what are the four corners of each of the hamlets. You know, if I'm driving along Highway 28, what's popping out at me? And so we didn't see very much signage and advertisements for home-based businesses. We didn't see a lot of businesses other than the typical corner store that you would see in a hamlet area. But we did notice there was much more diversity of businesses outside of the hamlet areas. Some had really great signage. Some of them, you could tell it was some kind of industrial commercial business, but you didn't really know what it was. So the advertisement was sort of lacking when you just initially drive around the township to know what kind of opportunities are in there. So additional feedback that we've received to date through the surveys, we have noticed that people want to see additional support for businesses, but it was really focused on small business. I think there is a resistance to, you know, having the economy boom that, you know, it's all of a sudden going to increase the size of Millbrook, increase the population of Millbrook, you know, because when people see employment coming to town, they're also concerned that all of a sudden you're going to be this metropolis. So there was a lot of support for small businesses, but not so much for the greater opportunities. No big box development was a key theme that we understood the community didn't want to see. And that isn't the intent here. It's really just to support existing or new businesses and that offer services that the community needs. There was also increase in daily amenities, so banks, increase in grocery stores, whether it's the size of the existing or more grocery stores. Infrastructure upgrades. There was comments from the business sector with respect to lack of utilities, which prevents them from being able to expand their business or add other services to their business. Heritage and cultural retention, recreational offerings and trails, and increased access to healthcare. So the focus is really on making the community a place where you can enjoy your time there. So we were getting a lot of feedback with respect to, you know, keeping the character of the township, offering opportunities where people can enjoy the outdoor space, but also making sure that the people who are working here can still continue to do so with limited growth. So with that said, our team sat down and thought, okay, so we know what's existing and there's some opportunities to expand those existing CIP programs. We hear what people are saying. So what opportunities are out there that the township currently doesn't use that could be potential new programs that the township can utilize? So again, I'm not going to read all of this to you, but just to provide you with an overview, there are programs out there that offer opportunities that can be applied to any of the business sectors. So whether it's industrial, commercial, agricultural, on-farm diversified uses, agri-tourist uses. So there's opportunities around these different incentives with respect to construction costs for improvements, heritage conservation. There's not a lot of heritage outside of the Millbrook downtown. And it could be because people don't want to designate their properties or because they're afraid of the costs in the long term. So there are grants out there to help property owners who do want to designate their properties, but need some help with respect to the upkeep and the cost of that. Technology is another improvement grant that could be offered. You know, we all know through COVID that everyone was working from home. So there's opportunities for technology. You know, how can we utilize that where businesses need to readapt and support their business in order to make that shift. Secondary suites is another big topic, not just in the planning world, but I think from purely a living situation. You know, there's not a lot of vacancies or opportunities for affordable housing. So where appropriate, you have commercial opportunities where you should be able to support some residential units above or in addition to the back of your business. So that way business owners can live and work, or that's also an additional revenue generator where you have that ability to provide some residential housing in terms of just a unit, not a full-blown house. Some other opportunities, I had mentioned the vacant land tax assistance program. So approximately 32% of designated employment lands are vacant in the township, which is quite a bit. There's various factors for that. However, this is a great incentive for people who do own those lands and haven't done anything with it yet, that they can utilize this program to help them get started. There's opportunities through the Rural and Agricultural Economic Development Grant. So as more on-farm diversified uses are popping up, or those agri-tour uses, this is a program that can be offered to those property owners that can assist with their existing or potentially new businesses. Sustainability grants, you know, there's a lot of talk about climate change right now. There's a lot of policy coming down with respect to climate change. So kind of turning your head to thinking about what those climate change initiatives could be and how to adapt to your existing business or potential future business to meet those objectives. And finally, the Business Retention and Expansion Grant Program. This one will set criteria that will assist businesses to not only retain their current staff, but to find new employment opportunities. So it's really to help create local jobs. Okay. So at this point, I think you've heard me talk a lot about, you know, the things that we're finding and the things that we're proposing, but we really want to hear back from the community. So we've decided to put together a critical thinking exercise. So we want to hear back from the public to know, where do you go for your services? Do you stay in township? Do you have to go outside? Are there more opportunities in Peterborough? Or do you go to the GTA? You know, what industries are you envisioning in the township? So I think what I'm going to do is I will stop sharing and ask these questions and open the floor to the public. And then we're going to do another exercise to garner even more feedback.
So do you want me to just unmute everybody, Diana, or do you want me to just have people raise their hand? Or...
Yeah, if you do have, or if you can find the raise hand function.
Yeah.
I'd prefer if someone raises their hand and then we can kind of organize and monitor the feedback from there. So the first question is, you know, where do you go to access services in the community? Do you feel that there's sufficient services already, or do you need to go somewhere else? Any thoughts or opinions on that from this team? If you put on your camera and physically raise your hand, that counts as well. Christine.
So Christine, yeah, you just have to unmute yourself now. There you
Hi.
go.
Hi. So the only thing, like, as a representing a building owner, we've been trying to get, there's a few things that are definitely missing in Millbrook per se, like a butcher, you know, like that kind of stuff. But we can't seem to get anyone to fill in our empty building. Yeah, so that's a service that, you know, people have to, like, they'll go to Foodland. Yes, that's wonderful. But to have more like a butcher, you know, more options that way, then people wouldn't have to leave.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've tried. It's not because we haven't tried. We just can't get them, and I don't know why.
Okay. So I see Mary has a question, so I'm just gonna unmute Mary, and then Mary, I think you can, there you go.
So just more on that first question about services. I Millbrook actually, part of the reason I actually moved here, my husband and I moved here, was because for the most part, Millbrook offered kind of the core things, you know, having a Service Ontario, a pharmacy, there's a dentist, you know, hairdressers, liquor store, sorry, I had to throw that in there, and a food store, right? in a hardware store, and some lovely old cafe. And realistically, if you do need services, Peterborough is really, I mean, if you're not speeding 20 minutes away, and then basically you've got the south end of Peterborough, which has basically every store in Peterborough on one street. That's a good and bad thing. But I do think, and talking with my neighbors and people in the community, I think it is sad for us to see empty shops. And I know Christine. I'm not criticizing Christine and the business, the person who actually owns those buildings. Obviously, when you can't sell something, maybe it's price, maybe it's commercial leases are always complex and expensive, and we are just coming out of a pandemic where a lot of small businesses are struggling, but also, starting one up in the middle of this would be pretty daunting financially for anyone. I think economically, if we're renting things right now as a business owner, you kind of have to adjust to that the market is probably a little depressed, and finding employees, as we've seen with the pastry peddler, and a lot of business across the county, actually all across Canada, finding workers has been a bit tougher as well, right? So, why are some of those businesses empty? I think there could be some great businesses in there, but a butcher shop would be great. Mercantile certainly proved that people do like sort of the higher end, smaller shop, and will shop there, as well as tourists. And let's not forget, the Kawarthas and Peterborough and Millbrook are tourist areas, and part of the charm of Millbrook is bringing people here from outside and spending their money, because a lot of young families aren't going to go to the Mercantile and buy their groceries, obviously. And we've got a wedding shop and all kinds of neat little things, but encouraging small business is tough. But at the same time, we have vacancy, right? There's a number of vacant businesses on the main street. So as far as services, to go back to the original question, not to monopolize, I think it has the core. It's just, do you want services to make it convenient for people who live here, or do you want businesses that encourage tourism and promote the area broader than the local community? So it's sort of a tough call. Anyway, sorry, I rambled on there, Bridget, but thanks for what you said. How about it?
Thanks, Mary.
No, that was great, Mary. Thank you. I think they're very valid points. And a lot of the items that we're talking about tonight, there are incentives in these programs. It's just, finding the fit for the community and offering that and seeing what kind of uptake there will be. And of course, advertising, which is also part of our review. How can we spread the word that these opportunities exist? So the people who, aren't sure or a little concerned about, where their business is heading as a result of the pandemic, should they expand, this offers the municipality to extend some assistance, so that way it relieves some of that pressure initially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it's important to note too that the purpose of this CIP is we've got one that's doing well in downtown Millbrook, and now we want to look at expanding it out to the rest of the township. So what does the business community look like, or what does the community as a whole look like outside of Millbrook? So if we can kind of have that thought, and I see Connie, she's got her hand up. I just gonna unmute you there, Connie.
Okay, thank you.
And I know you're from the outside Millbrook, so
yes,
yeah.
And you also know some of my background on where I come from. Been around a while. I think there's a lot of good points, but as you know, Bridget, I've mentioned in other forums too that I think we have to be really mindful. I think this plan is great. I think it's great that you want to extend this. At this point in time, along with myself, I obviously am gathering information for a bunch of my clients. For those of you who don't know, I'm a bookkeeper, business manager, controller, kind of for hire for businesses who don't have the need for one all the time, kind of thing. A lot of those businesses are home-based in some way, shape, or form. And noting that you don't see the signs around because, sometimes you kind of want to keep a low profile because you don't want to stick your head out too far. So
That's a good point.
sometimes you have to keep in mind the sync between you're sold residential, you don't want to go into commercial because your business isn't big enough to carry commercial taxes, da 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 da. There's a limit to how much building you can put on your property. There's a limit to how much traffic your neighbors want. And there's a limit to how much expansion your business can justify because you want to keep it small. So that whole tie-in, and then we throw in the access to the internet, which is absolutely a limiting factor in a lot of this township. And I'm not going to name names or point fingers. We all know what we're talking about. And it's a problem in other areas too. I know my business could do better if I had better internet access.
Okay.
Because it is largely remote based. I can do a lot from home and I love being here, but it's a pandemic. I don't want people to come to my house. So if I was to do something here myself, it would be a matter of converting one of my outbuildings into an office because I don't want to drive anywhere because that would be, I'm better environmentally by staying at home if I could have better internet access, for instance, right? So when you look at how can you improve it in the township, you can't forget the basics. People want to stay at home. They don't want to get hit with commercial taxes. They don't want angry neighbors. They need the internet access. So before you put up a sign, you need that in place because advertising something you don't have or can't provide, that's a recipe for disaster from a marketing perspective, right?
Okay. Yep. That's great.
So I'm going to get on my high horse now.
That's
good feedback, Connie. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That was fantastic. Thank you. And yeah, great point. It's sometimes you don't want to advertise the business, and that's okay too. At the end of the day, the CIP is really there for the community to find a program that you think is that's suitable for your business, that you think you might need and benefit from. So for example, that technology grant, that I'm anticipating and hoping that there's going to be a lot of uptake there. And, whether it's improvements to your facade and signage, that option is there, but you don't necessarily need to take it, especially if you want to keep a low profile. But, including business space or an office, there's opportunities within the grants for that as well, just to help you rebuild. So that way you can stay at home and establish your business there and not worrying about, going out into a commercial space. So that's really great feedback. I think it's touching on some of the programs that we were introducing. So it's helping us understand whether or not we're headed in the right direction.
Okay.
Okay. Are there any industries that you do envision in the township that you would, we did hear some feedback of stuff that's not in town that you would like in town, but are there any other opportunities outside of Millbrook proper that you would think would be important to support the township from an economic perspective?
Mary, I see your hand is up. Is it up? Is it up from the last time, or did you have another? It is.
Sorry, that's from the last time.
That's okay.
Thanks, Bridget. I almost called upon her. I just been known to do that in past open houses.
So Christine just put in more retail stores.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And Connie, I do see your point there, but it doesn't help if the internet feed can't support it. So, Deputy Mayor Graham is here, so I think he's hearing you loud and clear. Get some internet going in this community.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. So for existing business,
Connie has her. Sorry, Connie has her hand up again. Sorry.
Well, just to, the internet is desperately needed, but I think when you're talking about what would be nice to have in and around, I think you really need to remember those home-based businesses, because you don't want a retail store in the middle of whatever, right? that's going to cause problems with the neighbors, the roads, I mean, I live, as some of you know, right off Fallis Line. The nature of the traffic on Fallis Line has changed dramatically. It used to be a place to walk your dog. Now you do that basically at the risk of your life, because people are coming off the 115. They want to shoot right across to the new subdivisions, and they're still got the foot at the bottom of, you know, the floor. So I think we have to be very careful. I mean, we know originally the township was developed very hopscotch, right? It was somebody bought a piece of land here, threw some houses in, somebody bought the land, threw some houses in. We have to be very careful that wherever we encourage business to develop, that it's a business type that will fit that environment. You can't put something that needs great big delivery trucks on Fallis Line. It's gonna go bad, right? and so there's zoning and stuff, but it's also purely pragmatic and practical issues, right? Of how to manage the traffic without driving everybody else mad.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, the intent of the CAP and the feedback that we're getting is to understand which programs are going to service the township best. You know, there are a lot of other issues with respect to development and enforcement of proper development. You know, Karen Ellis is on the line, and, you know, as the director of planning, and I see John as well. You know, they're kind of the people in charge of ensuring the orderly development of the land. But outside of that, you know, this process is really geared to understanding what programs that we can offer the township to help with current or existing and future businesses. But thank you very much for that, Connie. I'm going to turn it over to Emma, if you don't mind. Emma's going to put up a map, and I'm hoping to garner some more participation. If we can identify, and just generally, I don't mean specific property owners or specific businesses in the area, but generally around the township. We want to understand where you think there are locations for opportunities in order to use these programs. Are there any areas of constraints that you think the programs won't help just because of the nature of the location? And do you see any other service employment needs? So we kind of just were hoping people can identify, by using this map, we can kind of see outside of Millbrook into the balance of the township where we feel there's opportunities for improvements.
So I think, again, guys, if you want to just raise your hand, then I can unmute you and you can provide comment. Is that what you're thinking, Diana?
Yep, yep, absolutely.
Okay.
Because I think for starters, just to, I guess, initiate some discussion here, you know, we're looking at the hamlet areas, and as we all know, development is supposed to go into settlement areas, but proper development and that meets the scale of the area. So when we're looking at Kevin Monaghan's different hamlet areas, there's not a lot of retail opportunity. Highway commercial, you know, outside of a gas station opportunity. And so I just trying to lead the discussion in a way, you know, I think that with respect to the hamlet areas, these are opportunities that could be realized, that could have additional services to those communities that are close to, say, Ida or Cavan. So from our background information, we've noticed that there could be uptake of these programs in these particular areas. Anyone else with any thoughts? Employment needs?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh. Go ahead, Matthew. You may have to unmute yourself. There.
I do. I do, and I'm here. Is that working?
Perfect.
Yeah. So I'll make a comment. So, you know, I was really you know, I have and continue to really push this initiative so I can fill in some dead air. No problem. It's one of my strengths. The intention behind it, I think one of the things that I just wanted to clarify is that we've talked a lot about, and there's nothing wrong with this, and don't take it as a criticism, is this can be utilized as a tool to incentivize and try to spur on support for new business or expanding businesses. But it is also a tool to be taken advantage of for businesses that exist in their current form.
Yeah.
Whether those were appropriately planned or legislative in ancient history, I can't speak to that. I mean, I think we all have different opinions on what fits where in certain cases or why that thing's there, but they are there, and there are businesses that are doing well and serving the business. Think of vet clinics, think of Cavan Chiropractic, I think of health related services and things like that, but also farm related businesses that are, receiving a lot of expansion and attention, especially in popularity due to COVID and the sort of hesitancies of going to those larger stores and things of that like. So it is a tool that can sort of spur on and be used to help incentivize business growth. But that is sort of just one element to what the idea is that it can provide. It can also support those businesses that haven't been eligible for the same sort of supports that the Village and Millbrook businesses have been. And Connie's very right. Like some of those in areas that are specific, more traditional CIPs like the Village and Millbrook, signage is obviously one that we would want some controls over and to incentivize, sorts of programs to maintain the cultural elements of the village. In the greater township, it's a much different project in that we're trying to come up with mechanisms and programs and grants that can support a diversity of businesses in what might help them succeed, not necessarily maintain an aesthetic or some sort of color schematic or things of that nature, but what could be done. And we're sort of seeking that sort of input because I can I've got ideas sometimes and I can propose them, but I would much prefer. This is the township and, our consultants and Bridget and myself and the members of staff on the call, reaching out to say, what sort of programs could we do to help the businesses that exist, not just the ones we want to potentially attract. Mm-hmm. So I just wanted to make that sort of statement to say that, we are looking into diverse categories that can both support, but also, spur on and, you can support existing and support new at the same time. And that's a really important inherent nature of what we're trying to create with this CIP. So it's not so much a planning discussion. I mean, Scott and I and the county have done, I hear the internet concerns. We're doing just about everything that I think we can do to leverage the parties involved to get that going. And I know EORN and things of the like are working. And we've all seen or probably driven by the amount of, fiber optic cable that's going in the south end of the township at least. And I know it's going further north as well. So that is a work in progress and definitely a constraint for lots of businesses in the community. But I think the staffing comment is one that I think is interesting. And I wonder if there's an opportunity, and I'm asking, is there opportunities in the CIP to sort of coordinate or support businesses that might want to hire a student or something of that nature and can sort of help facilitate or fund the opportunity to potentially, expand that effort or offer of employment to local kids, for example.
Yeah, thank you for those points. Those are excellent points, Deputy Mayor. So with respect to the employment aspect, that business retention and expansion grant program, that is really an opportunity for existing businesses to say, okay, I've got to retain my current staff. I probably need some more, what opportunities do we have for the municipality to help those businesses achieve that goal? There are some businesses in the township that I can think of, for example, that host events. So whether it's a wedding event, and those are happening in barns, like people love that. It's a wonderful, beautiful setting. And in the midst of COVID, when, you're not having groups gather, how can we create that recovery? How can we assist businesses like that to make sure that they can host again? But that they have some support in order to get that up and running and that they have the people in place to help them because, you know, a lot of these businesses had to lay people off or didn't have the opportunity to keep them just because the business couldn't be there. So it's kind of a driver to get them back into business and having the support they need from the staff to get it going again.
Yeah, and I think if I can kind of chime in on some of the comments, you know, we also have a very strong agricultural background, and are there programs that we can look to foster and develop that agricultural sector? You know, maybe it's an opportunity for them to expand to include some sort of an ag-related business, or a bit of a non-farm diversified, that allows them to kind of grow and expand their existing business environment. So these are kind of some things that we could look at with this particular CIP.
Yeah, absolutely. And that rural and agricultural economic development grant would be well suited. You know, we are seeing farmers diversify their businesses with on-farm diversified uses, but we're also seeing opportunities for agritourism. And, you know, as Connie mentioned earlier, I believe it was Connie, sorry if I'm putting words in your mouth, no, I think it was Mary, that indicated, you know, this is a tourist area, right? And you want to drive that business and you want to get people in, and these are opportunities to help stage and set them up for success. So that way, you know, they're recovering from COVID aside. Now they have this opportunity to hopefully get new staff and help with these incentives to start their business again, or to start new because they weren't able to do that before. So there's definitely opportunities through that grant as well. I'm finding, you know, through our research, like I mentioned, it's the vacant land, the opportunities for the rural and agricultural sector, and then opportunities as well for retaining and getting staff to recover from what we've just went through in the past 2 years. I think Connie's hand up was first, and then it was Mary. Is that what you saw, Bridget? Okay. Go ahead, Connie.
Yeah, that's, again, I've got a bit of experience on that one too. Again, I really strongly encourage that some of the background work that's being done on behalf of the township, and again, it's great to provide grants with it, but as a farm, for instance, that starts diversifying into agribusiness or tourism, it can be a major hurdle, because suddenly you are dealing with a completely different profile. And now you're dealing with impact. Part of your land's going to get sown commercial instead of farming. The step up to make that a really viable long-term endeavor is very large. It's easy to throw in a little gathering here or there, or do some tours in the sugar shack or whatever, but the next step up is pretty big. Mm-hmm. And can very quickly make it financially not doable, because you just don't have the capacity to absorb that level of cost for the revenue in the beginning. So that's just a practical experience from my end of it.
For sure. Absolutely, Connie. Thank you for that. And it's not to say that you can only use these programs if you're expanding or starting off new. These are, you know, as Deputy Mayor Graham said, they're also for existing opportunities, existing businesses. So the grants are there to use for the business owners in the way that will help support their business to continue and not necessarily expand. So, you know, I think the education as well through what these grants can do, and we'll continue explaining those opportunities and helping to educate the public, you know, how to use these grants and what they actually mean at the end of the day. Because it's really up to the property owner on the opportunity and what they want to use. But it is, you know, either it's an opportunity either to fix up what you already have, or an opportunity to expand into something else if that's where you're headed. So it can do both. Mary, go ahead.
And I apologize, because what I'm going to bring up is it's not necessarily covered by the SIP grants, but and someone else brought up the internet and sort of infrastructure. And part of the issue, I think, too, with the sort of more rural areas and the urban getting employees is transportation. And so that sort of speaks more to a broader issue. But getting people out into the township to work if they're at lower paid jobs isn't necessarily easy, and transportation comes into it. But I just want to mention that it sort of goes along with infrastructure with the internet, but not necessarily something that can be fixed with the SIP program.
Thank you, Mary. Yeah. Okay. I am going to continue on. Is there any other items or topics of discussion with respect to opportunities in the area? Otherwise, we will continue on. We are at 6 o'clock, and I am not rushing anyone out. This is about you, and we are happy to stay here as long as you need us. So I'm going to share my screen again. I'd like to thank everyone for providing feedback and answering our questions. Sorry, I'm just trying to share again, and answering our questions. There's a lot of topics that are bigger and outside of what this CIP program can do. And, I know that the staff is definitely documenting that for future use, and they understand and they hear you. But at this point, we're hoping that at least by expanding some opportunity to the rest of the township that is only currently enjoyed by Millbrook now, that at least it provides that additional support for businesses in the community. So we'll take that feedback and we will document it, and we will compare it against the programs that we are looking at recommending. And we're also going to see if there's any other additional programs that we may have missed based on the feedback that we've received, and see if those opportunities are appropriate as well. So after this open house, we are going to do that policy analysis, and then we're going to prepare a CIP directions report. And in that report, there's going to be various recommendations that we are going to propose based on our research and based on the feedback that we've received from the community. And we will be presenting those recommendations to council on December 6th. So if you'd like to hear those recommendations in detail, please attend, and I'll be there presenting those recommendations to council. It's not a type of meeting where you're going to be able to participate and offer feedback. It's really just to listen to the recommendations, but absolutely document, and then come back and provide us with your feedback based on what you're hearing, because it doesn't mean it's the end. It's additional feedback for us to receive and adjust where appropriate. So
I think Deputy Mayor Graham has a question.
No, I was just going to say that, thanks to everyone for attending. I think there was discussion earlier about extending the survey window. And I just wanted to say, especially, individuals with, clients or networks like Christine and Connie, we'd very much like some more participation and survey analysis from the community. And so we are going to be, I think the consensus was we are going to extend that window. But, without more submissions, it's hard to sort of steer the sorts of programs and grants that are going to be offered. And that's really what we're looking for is, there's a lot of things that we can't do, when we're bound by, where our legislation is at the bottom of the heap of legislation, as I'm sure John and Karen will attest to. So there's very much things that we can't do with regards to, planning policies. But the CIP is one thing where, in the absence of a CIP, which is where we're at, there's been nothing in the way of municipal supports for these types of businesses because there's very little we can do. So this is something we can do, but we'd like to do it in a way that's going to be actionable and effective for as many people as possible in different iterations of whatever program it can be. So, whether they want to keep a low profile and avoid a commercial tax rate, I understand that, no issue. That's how you got to start somewhere. So there's no issues with that. There's no, we're not going to come seeking you out for, enforcement on that sort of thing. But it's helpful to know if, you know, some of the constraints are somewhat helpful, but it's also helpful to put the lens on what the solutions might be. And it's not going to be an earth-shattering solution. You know, I mean, I'm not Elon Musk. I can't be putting the satellite up for our own internet services. But, you know, if there are creative solutions, we would love to try to come up with a way to incorporate those into effective grants, whether it's for ag tourism, ag businesses, home businesses, you know, you name it. I think the signage is what they're often thought of and sort of reduced to, but they can do a lot more than that. I'm really hoping that we can get as much feedback as possible to come up with the programs that are actually going to help, rather than highlight, you know, we can't do much, but this is something we can do. And it's been working in the village of Millbrook. And I thought it was unfair that other businesses in the township haven't been able to or eligible for the same sort of benefit. So that's what's brought us here. And I appreciate both the consultants and Bridget and her hard work on trying to get this vision up and running. And yeah, so if Bridget, I don't know if you can share that on the screen or something like that before we go. I wasn't sure if Diana was quite done, but I just wanted to make sure that the people on the call had the chance to
On the survey, you mean?
For the survey? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so Diana has the link to the community improvement plan page, which the survey is actually from there. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So if you share that link to anyone and everyone, we talked about extending it to end of next week. Is that right, Deanna?
I think so. Yeah.
Yep,
Next
we're
week.
going to do it another week. Yeah. So
Yeah.
Friday of next week.
Mm-hmm.
So, but honestly, it's just, you know, while we have an audience here, I just wanted to, you know, make that request. The better informed it is, the more feedback we get, the better the programs are going to be. And, you know, that's going to help everyone. So that's just my sales pitch. So thanks very much. But thanks again for all the work, Bridge, and Diana and Emma as well.
My pleasure. And thank you. Because we can't do anything if we don't have the support of council. So it's great. It's really good. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. So this is the project information. So if you want to get more information, and absolutely please fill out the surveys that we have posted. This is the link. It's available on the municipality's website. All of our reporting will also be posted here. So you have an opportunity to see what we've documented and what we've been up to and what we're going to recommend as a result.
Mm-hmm.
Project contact is myself or Bridget in order to ensure that we're not missing any comments and that we have one location where we're gathering information. In this case, it's two. Please send anything to Bridget and myself, and we will ensure to respond to you quickly. I did lay out some communication protocols. So if you send us an email, we will review it, or we will be able to look at it within 2 days, and we'll definitely respond within 5. But you're also welcome to call us as well, and we can have a bigger discussion about the CIP opportunities. So now I'm just going to stop sharing my screen and open the floor again to any other comments or questions that this group might have with respect to the CIP programs that we are proposing to date. You know, we're trying to make sure that, you know, the ones that are already available in Millbrook that are appropriate, we can expand to the balance of the community, as well as any new programs that meet the needs of that diversified business that we're finding in the balance of the township. It's really there to help businesses continue on or expand depending on what it is that they're proposing to do with their operations. I don't know if I don't see any hands up, or I'm just going to monitor this chat. Yes, if you could share with everyone you know, that would be awesome. Thank you, Christine. Get the conversation going.
Yeah.
Chamber of Commerce, absolutely. And that's it for that. You're welcome, John. Okay. Yes, please, everyone who can reach out to a broader audience to get some feedback. Because like I said, these documents are prepared for the community. We're just writing them down for you. Okay. Well, that's the end of the formal presentation. And if there's no questions,